y'all. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Higher Ed Matters. Now, I thought I knew about direct admissions, but this conversation with Alan Byrd, Director of Admission for George Mason University, who's part of the Common App's pilot program, really got me thinking. Are we headed for a future where the college application process as we know it will no longer exist? Let's get into it.
So, Alan Byrd, thanks so much for being on the episode today with us. So Jessica, fun fact, I don't know if you know, Alan and I went to undergrad together at Southeast.
I did not.
And we had similar paths. Alan was a football star. I was in Resline, very similar.
Right. I mean, same thing.
But, no, we met there and just, Alan's been tremendous to work with. We worked at SEMO together in admissions and then at University of Missouri St. Louis in admissions. And so it's been exciting to watch Alan grow in his career. And let me tell you what, if there's anyone that gets it when it comes to building relationships with students and helping them in that transition to college and then supporting them through college, it's Alan Byrd. I used to love Alan, watch students come in, to your office and just a chit chat, talk about basketball or maybe they might need some financial advice or, you name it. I mean, it was so great to just see you, serve as a mentor role model. So, I'm just excited to see you as you've grown in your career, man.
I appreciate it, Drew. Yes, we do have a long history together, all the way from the classroom to working together at SEMO, to work together at UMSL. And again, we both share the same passion to help students make that transition to college, help them understand the process, and really be able to reach their dreams through education. I mean, it's been a pleasure serving students all the way from the Boot Hill to St. Louis and all across Missouri. So I definitely enjoyed our trip together, Drew. Good to last time again.
Absolutely, for sure. So Alan, I know we haven't chatted much since you've been at George Mason, but just chat a little bit about what's a day in the life like for Alan Byrd at George Mason University.
I tell you what, George Mason University is a lot different than my previous institutions. It's a large institution. We're 39,500 students, and I have a really large team, but we are extremely busy. We received a record number of applications again for the third year in a row, and we are just trying to manage that growth and to really be able to provide the level of service that we used to provide, even though we're growing at a pretty rapid rate. But the school itself is amazing. I mean, we are a large public research R1 institution, really focused on access, though. That's one of the things I really enjoy about Mason. We have a 90% acceptance rate. So we are really into talent development. We're focused on being an inclusive university as opposed to an exclusive university. So we really do pride ourselves on taking those B-average students and helping them go out and change the world. So it's been a pleasure, and I'm enjoying my time in the DC area so far.
So Alan, I'd love to hear about the growth and the records, record setting that you're doing in George Mason. So talk about direct admissions. Where did the idea come about with regard to direct admissions and George Mason and the Common App?
Absolutely. So we were approached by Common App in 2020. Basically, Common App saw significant shifts in their applications during the pandemic. They saw they were receiving a lot less applications from first-generation students, low-income students, students from rural areas. They really wanted to do something to stimulate the market and to get those students to continue applying to colleges and applying and searching for more colleges. So they started that pilot, and they started initially with 3 HBCUs, but then the second year they started to invite other schools to join, and they approached us as being the largest public university in the state of Virginia. And once I learned about the program and we took a look at it, we decided that it would be a great opportunity. For the most part, as you know, direct admissions is a huge trend in higher ed right now. People are doing it for different reasons. Some is more access focused. Some is purely to generate or boost enrollment. But for us, it was really more on the access side with us. So basically, through that program, through the pilot, we agreed to offer direct admission to a certain amount of students across the state of Virginia. And again, the Common App was really, really focused on low-income students, first-generation students, underrepresented students of color. And for us, we thought it was an opportunity for us to provide students with increased college choice. Because again, what we saw, the students were either not applying to as many schools or they weren't applying to college at all. and a lot were undermatching. I mean, there are a lot of high ability students who are only applying to local community colleges. So the direct admission program was really a way to expose them to other opportunities and to let them know, based on their academic profile, that they had opportunities at additional institutions. So we agreed to, again, offer direct admission to 2,000 students across our state in January 2021. And about a little over 10% of those students took up on that offer. And we had a little over 30 students enrolled in that first class. And I'm proud to say that we're now in the pilot for the second year, and the number's even better. So it's definitely an opportunity for students who may not have been considering our institution at all, thought they probably couldn't get in or maybe couldn't afford it. So that direct admission offer really allows us to, first and foremost, show them that we're interested, show them that they have a direct pathway to our institution, and to get them to see what it's all about. Because what happened, we had a lot of students who got that email. Some of them thought it was a scam. They were like, what is this? Is this real? Are you guys really going to admit me? Once we got through that and explained the program, they were excited. Many of them came to visit. And like I said, we had a pretty decent yield. Now the second piece, of course, is the financial piece. We had a lot of students who came to visit and were interested, but the financial aid package wasn't quite there to make it affordable for them. So that's really step 2 for us, figuring out how to adjust our scholarships and our financial aid packages to help more of those students be able to take advantage of this opportunity.
Alan, can you just kind of break down operationally like how it works?
Absolutely. So it all starts with the original message comes from the Common App. So they send a dual message from myself and then basically letting the student know, based on their academic profile, they qualify for direct admission to George Mason University. And as long as they submit the Common App by our deadline, they'll be guaranteed a spot in our freshman class. So then it's up to the students who actually go in and add us to the Common App and complete the application before the deadline. And then once they do, they are guaranteed a spot in our class. They receive all the information just like all of the other students in our prospect pool. And again, we really are starting to try to develop targeted messaging for them, because the first year was really just, we treated them like everyone else. But now we want to tailor it a little bit more to the direct admit students.
So, Alan, how procedurally, internally, how has this changed for your staff? Is it more gathering transcripts and scores, or having those kept somewhat yield conversations with students? What does that look like?
So, I mean, the great thing about this program, it really fit well within our normal operations. So what it added was several hundred additional applications for us to review. But the great thing about reviewing the Common App direct admits is we know that we're going to admit them. So really the review process is more or less getting to know the student, reading the essay, getting a feel for them, but reading those are automatic admits. So it takes really stress and anxiety off the staff, because those are pretty easy to evaluate.
Oh goodness, I do not miss the days of chasing down transcripts though. So I don't know if you're seeing headaches with that at all for letters of rec or anything like that.
Well, again, with the direct admits, the great thing about them is that, again, like we don't need as much information from them, because again, we're making the decision based on their academic profile. However, I mean, transcripts really haven't been an issue for us. Again, for us, the review process has been challenging. Like I said, we've been growing at a pretty rapid rate. Even this year, our apps right now are up 13% for the fall, and it's been tough on our staff having to read all of those additional apps and still keep our same turnaround time for decisions.
Sure.
Alan, is your filter for those direct admission choices, is it purely on the academic profile, or are there other class shaping things you're doing with geographic or other types of things that you might be able to identify through the Common App profile?
Right. So through the Common App program, it's only for Virginia residents. So they're working with individual states. So for us, most of the students coming through the Common App direct admit program for us are from rural parts of Virginia, where we don't have as much of a presence, where we don't get to visit as often. So again, it's opening George Mason as an opportunity to a lot of those students. But in terms of the main goal for us is, again, for students to be able to see that we're accessible to them, that they qualify for admission, and for them to come to see us. Because we had a very high yield rate for those students who actually visited our campus. And again, like I mentioned earlier, if not for the financial barriers, we would have had even a lot more of those students who enrolled with us. In terms of the criteria, it is basically a certain GPA in our core curriculum classes. So as long as they have the GPA that we set threshold in the core classes, then they qualify for direct admissions.
Very cool.
Absolutely. So in terms of the impact on students, it sounds like it's been a well received from the students that have been a part of the program, but what impact do you think that has on their choice and their search process?
Well, the thing, I believe that it removes a lot of stress and anxiety. I mean, that's the beauty of direct admission programs. Students don't have to go through a lengthy application process and sweat bullets to see if they qualify for acceptance. That's a piece of it. And also, I mean, it's convenience as well. I mean, again, their application fee is waived. They know that they qualify for admission, so they can take their time doing the application. Not a lot of stress put on the essay and the letters of recommendation. It's all just confirmation at that point. So I think that's the best part of it, reducing that stress and anxiety, but also, again, school choice, because a lot of the students who we picked up through that program really were only applying to 1 or 2 schools near where they live, or they only applied to a local community college. So again, opening up this opportunity to attend Mason really broadened their school choice in terms of what they were thinking about.
Absolutely. It's really a game changer, Alan, because from a psychological standpoint, on the student side, like maybe, starting the college process thinking that there's 1 or 2 institutions that I'm looking at, but then getting, out of the blue, an admission offer from another institution that you weren't even considering, thinking, oh my goodness, this school wants me, and they're considering me for admission, but also scholarships potentially. I mean, that psychologically, I think is a game changer for students.
Oh, absolutely. The students, once they called us and saw that it was legit, I mean, they were excited. And like I said, they came to visit campus, and we yielded quite a few. We had a pretty decent yield of those who actually visited our campus.
So you talked a little bit about the financial aid piece of that. Are you seeing more FAFSAs and more ICERs submitted?
We are this year. After a couple down years of receiving less ICERs, our numbers are back where they were pre-pandemic now. So I'm excited to see more Pell eligible students applying to college again. It's definitely good for everyone. But we are, again, our challenge now is the same as many institutions. As you know, the price of higher ed has increased substantially over the last few decades, while financial aid has been pretty stagnant. And unfortunately, the Pell Grant was increased for this next cycle, so we're excited about that. But we know that we have to do some things on our end in terms of institutional need-based aid to really keep our institution affordable for everyone. So that's really the thing. This year, we wanted to enhance our financial aid package to give more students an opportunity to join us in the fall.
Good. Do you worry at all about, I don't want to say inflated admit numbers, but it's different from how we used to do it, right? And so what does that keep you up at night?
Absolutely. I mean, the numbers in the funnel are totally inflated now. I mean, first and foremost, students are applying to more schools. They're also double depositing and attending orientation at multiple universities. So our historic yield numbers don't really carry the same weight they used to. It used to be more predictable. But we see it right now. I mean, for example, in Virginia, I mean, we didn't have an increase in high school seniors this year, yet all of us are seeing record applications from Virginia residents. Again, it's because they're applying to more schools. Well, they're not going to enroll at all of our institutions. So we all have to brace ourselves for what yield will look like this summer. Especially for us, we know, we even saw it last year during the pandemic. We saw that more local students were applying to us because they didn't want to go away from home. But our yield was not what we typically have with those inflated application numbers coming in locally.
Can you talk a little bit about what the conversations are like internally, maybe for those senior leaders who may not understand this program, and if they're starting to see those numbers like, oh, we're going to have a record year, but let's temper that excitement because, you can't.
Absolutely. So again, Drew, you're speaking my language. I mean, it's really about tapering expectations and really setting our campus up for success. Because right now our numbers look amazing, but again, I don't want them to start preparing for a 20% increase in our freshman class. So we meet weekly to talk about the numbers to get an idea of where we're going to land. And for the most part, we're expecting a slight drop off in our enrollment yield. So we're predicting an increase in our class, but not quite right now. Our deposits are up 12%. We're not going to have a 12% increase in our freshman class. So we're looking geographically to determine, how much we can realistically expect from these various states. and regions. And I think we have a pretty good handle on where we are right now. Because again, we know students are double depositing, but we're pretty confident that we'll still be able to yield 90% of our deposited students.
Are you doing anything or kind of planning anything differently for the yield phase?
Yes. So first and foremost, we have a gazillion yield events this spring. We had a large event on Saturday. We had a large honors event on Sunday. We have a Nova night for local students this Friday. So we've increased the number of yield events that we have on campus, and we're also ramping up off campus. We're doing receptions at Top Golf, pretty much all across the states next month. We are all over the place. I know that I have Dallas, Houston, Atlanta, and a few that I'm doing, but our staff, we divided them up. So we'll be going out to engage with our deposited students and to give them some George Mason swag to get them excited about coming to join us in the fall.
Nice. Smooth move, Alan. Now you're speaking my language, buddy. That's Top Golf. I'm telling you what. So is this, how many years now? Is this your second year of this?
This is our second year in the Common App pilot. And honestly, our president is a huge supporter of college access, and he really liked the concept of the program. So now we're even thinking about having an institutional direct admission program, partnering with local schools. Now, there's a few out there already. We've been talking specifically to Arizona State. I'm looking at the model that they have, but they have a program where the entire high school submits their transcripts to the institution, and based on their GPA and the core courses, they get a direct admit letter without even applying. So that's something that we're looking into right now, because we feel like this is an opportunity again for us to encourage more students to consider a four-year university and to also make Mason a more viable option for more students in our region.
Is there a limit to, in terms of the Common Apps pilot program, do you have kind of exclusivity in the pilot program, or are there direct competitors that are doing the same things you are in the state?
Well, we have a few others in the state who signed on to the pilot, but I don't feel like it's competition at this point. I mean, again, I have not asked the Common App, long term about how they're going to manage all the schools that join the direct admission program. But right now, it's only a few of us. So, it's not much. I don't see any conflict at this point. Right. They're basically, on our behalf, offering direct admission to 2,000 students who were not considering Mason previously.
So I know these are efforts that are ramped up for incoming freshmen, but have you done anything differently with your transfer or adult populations?
Well, not in terms of direct admission. However, we are very interested in those populations. Those are a large part of our incoming students as well. So on the transfer side, we have a guided pathway program that we have with Northern Virginia Community College, where students basically work with us for 2 years. They receive a Mason coach on their campus, and we make sure they're taking appropriate classes. They have a seamless transfer to our institution. It's actually direct admission because they don't have to apply either. So if they join the Mason Advanced program through the guided pathways, it's a smooth transition. All of their information rolls over to us. They don't have to apply. They know they have a spot in our class. Also with that comes financial benefits, because we have the Mason Virginia Promise. So students in the advanced program actually have an opportunity to receive financial aid that covers their entire tuition and fees on our campus. So it's a smooth pathway, and now we are actually thinking about expanding and having an advanced-like program for colleges across our state here in Virginia. So we're developing those relationships with additional community colleges as we speak.
Have you altered your scholarship criteria or offerings to kind of fit more students come along possibly?
Not just yet. So again, the great thing about George Mason University is we are growing fast, but we are relatively young, only 50 years old. So we don't have a huge endowment right now in terms of scholarships. So that's one of the things that we're developing so we can do more of that space. So right now, we definitely have the program set. The goal is to, of course, grow our Mason Virginia Promise program so we can take more students and support more students through that. But right now, our financial aid and scholarships have not adjusted for the actual direct admission program, which is a goal, though, because, again, we definitely see there's a need there and there's a high interest among the students.
For people that are in roles like yours at institutions across the country, maybe thinking about using direct admissions as part of their kind of enrollment marketing toolkit type of thing, what are some good like questions that should be asked of leadership or operationally? Like what should be some good things that folks should be thinking about as they might be, investigating this as an option?
Oh, absolutely. I think first and foremost, they have to decide the end goal of the initiative. Is the goal to, increase access for certain populations to your institution? Is it just to increase enrollment overall? What areas or regions you're trying to impact? Because again, the Common App pilot is just one of many right now. There's a lot of third-party vendors that are now in the direct admission market. You have EAB, you have Niche, you have a few others who are starting to get a direct admission space, and there's a lot of different strategies and opportunities behind it. Some campuses are using it for specific states where they want to increase enrollment. So it really depends on what their strategic goals are and how this fits into those goals. But for us, it was really more about us being able to attract more students from regions of the state that we don't typically draw them, and it's worked out extremely well for us. But there are definitely other opportunities where this system and this process can aid institutions with increasing their enrollment strategically in different areas. Like for us, again, the local program, I think that we're investigating right now will also help a lot of students who may not be considering college. I mean, what we saw during the pandemic is that the college matriculation rates in our region and across our state really declined for certain populations, especially first-generation low-income students. So a program like this, if this can stimulate them and to get them more interested and more confident in coming back to college, it's a win-win for everyone.
Do you think that, so test optional, right? Like test optional as an idea, right? Started, it was kind of becoming popular as a kind of enrollment engine, potential, especially from the perspective of access. And then the pandemic hit, and then it was like, nobody's taking the test. So like, let's go ahead and just go test optional. If you had like your enrollment management crystal ball, like, do you think that direct admissions is just going to skyrocket sort of like test optional did?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, again, the schools that have started working in the direct admission space are seeing benefits. And I mean, for the most part, even if you look at some of the third-party vendors, the schools that they're working with, the list is growing exponentially every year. So it's going to catch on because it's another way, again, to engage students who may not have been engaged by your institution previously. And there's opportunities there. There really are. I mean, in terms of test optional, I mean, that has helped so many schools broaden their scope and reach their diversity and access goals. Now, at George Mason, we've been test optional since 2007. So that's always been part of our DNA. But many of our schools across the state, since they went test optional during the pandemic, saw significant increases in the numbers from certain populations. So once you flip that switch, it's hard to go back. And you know that
slippery slope.
yes, you know that a lot of students, there's some students that only apply to test optional institutions or highly favor them. So direct admission absolutely could be another pathway to have a similar impact on your enrollment.
Do you think it will ever like fully replace the traditional application process?
I hope not. Again, I think, I think it's important to have that formal process. And that's why right now, even though we know we're going to admit the students, we still read and review them because we want to know them. We want to get a feel for them to make sure, that they're a good fit. So I'm just going blind and not reading them at all. I mean, that would take away an opportunity for us to really know and understand our students.
Yeah.
Totally.
You hit it on the head there, Alan. It's all about fit, right? And just because you admit a student based on certain criteria, you don't really know them until you have those conversations and really understand who they are and what they can bring to the campus environment. That's always something that I always loved about in the roles that we've been in, just getting a chance to know those students and then watch them grow as campus leaders and then graduate and then become campus leaders elsewhere and really foster that next generation of student affairs or enrollment management professionals. So, again, it all starts with the right fit and really getting to know those students. So I appreciate your take on that for sure. And Jessica, you mentioned enrollment management crystal ball. Can we patent that? Is that something we can start?
I wish I had one. So
absolutely. So Alan, let's talk for a second about enrollment cliff. I'm not checked the witchy data yet on Virginia, but what does that look like for your state? And besides direct admissions, what are you planning to head off the enrollment cliff?
Absolutely. Well, as you know, the cliff is always on my mind, and I make sure that it's on the mind of our campus leadership. So in Virginia, I mean, basically, we will be impacted by the cliff. We're going to start to see the number of high school graduates in Virginia dip. As a matter of fact, this year was actually flat. And so we're starting to see the cliff a little earlier. We thought it was going to happen in 2025, but it is real. We're going to see less students graduating from high school, and it's going to impact everyone. But in terms of how we're preparing for, first and foremost, I mean, direct admissions is one of the many initiatives that we're putting into place. Also, with the guided pathway program that I mentioned, advanced, expanded to additional community colleges is another thing that we're doing, but also wrapping up our out-of-state recruitment. I mean, we have regional representatives, and we're sizing up states where we have opportunity. We feel like we have opportunity for growth and developing those new markets. Also, investigating some tuition reciprocity with bordering states. I mean, there's a lot of things in the playbook that we are working on right now, strategically trying to figure out how to maintain our enrollment goals once the cliff happens. Because again, we are a national university. We attract students from all 50 states. But right now, 75% of our students come from Virginia. So Virginia is not growing. That's going to force us to change our game plan. And we're starting to make those changes now. And I also did mention international recruitment as well. That's something that we are expanding. I mean, as a matter of fact, right now, our director of international missions is in South America. So that's the first time we've actually done direct recruitment activities there. We were also in Africa, where we're seeing record ops from Africa right now. We're doing extremely well in India. So we really are diversifying our enrollment streams and trying to figure out where to spend our time and energy to keep our numbers growing. Again, I mean, working with Drew for years, he knows. I mean, part of this is the challenge of figuring out how to make the next class. So we're midway through this one, and we're already starting to think about, okay, what do we have to do differently next year to do even better? So that's the one thing about admissions. It's evolving. It's always changing. And if we have to stay on top of everything if we want to be able to meet our goals.
Absolutely.
Really not an easy job.
No. Alan, I think I've always said, I felt like in admissions, I'm spinning plates, right? So I'm over here, I'm working on this class, and then, I got to go over here and like get ready for, juniors, rising seniors, and then transfers and adult. And I feel like there's never a down moment, and you really don't have a minute to like, just get cocky or rest. Because, you're always working, and you never know what, i.e. pandemic, what might happen to where it kind of hijacks your enrollment. So I'm glad to see that you all definitely are planning for the future and making moves now to set up for success, down the road. So that's good stuff, man. So again, it's so great to have this time with you.
Oh, same here. Appreciate spending some time with you and Jessica. And Drew, my son is the biggest Chiefs fan. I promised him we'll go to a game next year, so we're gonna have to pick up.
Absolutely, you got a place to stay, so for sure. And we'll grab some barbecue as well when you get. Okay.
Nice.